I left that house in silence. No note. No goodbye. Just the sound of the door closing behind me. I thought she'd move on. I thought the wind would erase my footsteps. But when I came back years later, the lights were still warm. The floor still creaked the same. And she was still there. Waiting. Not because she needed me, but because something in her still believed I'd come home. I came back to destroy what I once built with her. But the house welcomed me first. The sky was bruised with twilight when I reached the edge of the clearing. The grass had grown long. Wind bent it in slow, steady waves like it remembered my footsteps. The house stood just as I left it, weathered stone, moss along the edges, a crooked chimney still puffing faint smoke. She kept the fire going. I hadn't planned to knock. I didn't plan anything. My hand went to the door, already half expecting resistance. But it opened before I touched it. It wasn't locked. The air inside smelled like dried herbs and something sweet. The same scent that used to cling to her hair. There were no sounds. No footsteps rushing to meet me. No voice calling my name with a mix of disbelief and anger. Just stillness. Then I saw her. Rael was sitting by the window, legs tucked beneath her, a thick book resting against one knee. She didn't look up. You left the door open, she said, quiet. I thought, maybe you'd walk back through it. I froze in the doorway. My boots still wet from the stream. My heart somewhere between my ribs and my throat. She turned a page, slow and deliberate. As if I hadn't been gone for 7 years. As if I'd just stepped out to check the fence. Her skin still held that soft green tint, almost gray in the dim light. Her hair had grown longer, twisted into a braid over one shoulder, streaked now with lines of copper. You're alive, I said, because I was too stunned to say anything else. She looked up then. Eyes the same shade of dusk as the sky behind me. So are you. I stepped inside. The door eased shut behind me without a sound. I didn't remember it ever doing that. Nothing in the house had changed. The rug was still threadbare in the corner I used to pace. The kettle still hung by the hearth. A bowl of washed fruit sat untouched on the counter. It was like walking into a photograph taken before the worst day of your life. Rael closed the book. She didn't rise. I didn't think you'd come back, she said, softer this time. Neither did I. I moved to the edge of the room. Stood near the table, not daring to sit. My legs ached from the journey, but guilt kept me upright. She glanced at me, then back to the fire. You still carry it, don't you? The war. I carry what I did in it. You left me. I was ordered to. You were ordered to kill me. You chose to walk away. That part was yours. I flinched. Not because it was cruel, but because it was true. I thought they'd come back for you, I said. They did. I told them you did it. That hit harder than a bullet. Why? Because if I didn't, they'd send someone else. Someone who wouldn't hesitate. Silence spread like smoke between us. Rael stood at last. Crossed the room in 2 unhurried steps. She didn't reach for me. just stood across the table. This house waited because I couldn't. I had to keep moving. Cooking. Reading. Fixing broken hinges. Waiting makes you rot. But a house, it can hold a hope better than a person can. My voice was hoarse. Why did you never lock the door? She smiled. Just a flicker. Because the first thing you ever fixed in this house was that broken latch. I figured if you ever came back, you'd remember how to open it. I didn't deserve that house. Or the way she waited inside it. And I knew then, I wasn't here to destroy what we had. I was here to see if anything we built could still hold the weight of us. She turned, walked back to her chair, and sat. There's stew. It's not hot. But it's there. I took a step toward the kitchen. Not to eat. Just to stay. The second day, I noticed the mug. It was on the far shelf, right where I'd left it the night before I ran. A chipped ceramic thing, plain and white, with a faded blue ring near the lip. I dropped it once. She glued it back together with something from her world that made the cracks shimmer faintly under starlight. I picked it up. Still clean. Not just dusted. Washed. The faint smell of lemon leaf soap clung to it like a whisper. You've been washing this? I asked over breakfast. Rael didn't look up from slicing fruit. Every week. You didn't throw it out. It was yours. She said it like it was a reason that needed no explaining. Like ownership didn't depend on presence. Like absence didn't undo belonging. The house creaked as wind touched its bones. The shutters rattled gently in old language of wood and breeze. Every detail in this place had memory in it. The dent in the floorboard near the hearth where I used to pace when the reports came in. The small burn mark on the windowsill from when she tried to make Earth-style tea and the pot boiled over. The nail in the back post where I once hung my holster, even after I promised I'd never bring a weapon inside. She never removed it. We sat in silence that morning. Not because we had nothing to say, but because the house was saying everything. Later, I stepped into the back room. Dust covered the bookshelves, but the titles were familiar. My notes. Her translations. Pages marked with dried petals. I ran my fingers over the spine of the language primer she made for me. Kale, she had said the first night she taught me Lyri, if you don't learn to speak my words, you'll never understand when I whisper something meant only for you. I remembered how clumsy I was tripping over vowel sounds, trying to shape phrases that didn't exist in Terran logic. But she had smiled every time. Even when I got it wrong. Especially when I got it wrong. Back then, this house was full of that laughter. Gentle. Echoing. The kind that made time stretch and soften. Now it was quieter. Not empty, just older. Like it was waiting for us to remember it properly. At dusk, I found her in the garden behind the house. The same herbs. The same rose. She hummed something I didn't recognize. You still grow the bitterroot, I said. She nodded. It was the only thing you didn't burn when you tried to cook. I laughed. She didn't. But then she smiled. And for a second, the years folded inward. Why didn't you change anything? I asked. Not the furniture. Not the paint. Not the smell of the sheets. She stood and brushed dirt from her knees. Because change means expecting not to come back. I never stopped expecting you. I didn't deserve her patience. But the house did. It had held her grief in its walls without letting it rot. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed. My bed. Still mine, apparently. The quilt was the same. The pillow still dented on the left side where I used to turn. I lay down fully clothed. And the ceiling greeted me like an old friend. The knot in the wood that looked like an eye. The crack in the plaster that ran like a question mark. I remember the night she told me she loved me. She said it in her tongue. Then again in mine. And I had said nothing. Not because I didn't feel it. But because I had never lived in a house long enough to believe those words could echo off walls and still mean the same thing. Now, hearing them again in memory, they sounded louder. This house remembered. And it was teaching me how to remember too. Rael was folding the tablecloth when I finally told her. She moved slowly, smoothing the corners like the cloth might bruise if she rushed. The light from the kitchen window hit her hair just right, turning the strands into a curtain of fire. I was supposed to kill you, I said. She didn't flinch. The air didn't change. But the way her hands paused on the fabric told me she'd been waiting for this confession longer than I'd known. I figured, she said. You left without finishing the job. That was louder than any bullet. I sat down. My knees bent like I was kneeling in a chapel. They told me to make it clean. Quiet. No traces. And instead, you made a ghost out of both of us. She laid the cloth flat. Pressed her palm to the table's surface. You chose to leave, she said. That was your punishment. Her voice wasn't cruel. It wasn't cold. It was what made it worse. I swallowed something sharp. I wanted to be the man who could stay. But I only knew how to run. And yet, here you are. I didn't answer. I watched her fingertips trace a knot in the wood grain. Like it was a map to some place we used to be. The silence sat heavy, but not angry. Just, unfinished. I thought forgetting you would make it easier, I whispered. She looked up then. Her eyes weren't angry. Just old. Older than they were when I left. You never forgot, she said. You just got better at pretending. My throat burned. I still dream about your voice, I said. Then why didn't you answer it? I didn't know how. The tears surprised me. Not because they came, but because they didn't ask permission. They slipped down my face without sound. No sobs. No tremble. Just water. She didn't move to comfort me. And I didn't expect her to. We sat across from each other. The table between us. The folded cloth like a flag of truce. I wiped my face with the back of my sleeve. I should have told you back then, I said. You didn't have the words. I didn't think I deserved them. The kettle on the stove clicked once. Metal cooling. The only sound in the room. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I said. She nodded. Good. Because I never withheld it. My eyes met hers. There was a long moment where we just breathed. It felt like a lifetime passed in that stillness. And maybe it did. The things I never said didn't disappear. They just changed shape. Into silence. Into memory. Into the way she folded the cloth and laid it gently in the drawer. Into the way I watched her, no longer afraid of being seen. That night, we didn't speak again. But we sat at the table long after the sun went down. Not touching. Not fixing anything. Just letting it be. And somehow, that was enough. It was the only door in the house I'd never opened. Not because it was locked. Because I was afraid of what was behind it. On the fourth morning, I stood outside it. The hallway was quiet. The air smelled like warm dust and pine soap. And something else, something faintly sweet, like dried petals. I turned the knob. The room was small. Soft. Walls painted in a pale blue Rael never would have chosen for herself. A handmade mobile hung from the ceiling, small wooden stars, slowly spinning. A low shelf of books in 2 languages. A bed with a blanket patterned in constellations. And toys. Simple ones. Well loved. A cloth doll with uneven stitching. A carved bird with wings that flapped when pulled. A red ribbon pinned to the wall. Then I heard the footsteps. Soft. Bare. Careful. She stepped into the doorway beside me. No older than 5. Big eyes. Her skin a muted green like Rael's, but warmer. Her hair fell in loose curls, red-brown and wild. She looked at me the way wild things do, not scared. Just watching. She didn't say anything. I didn't either. Rael's voice came from behind us. Calm. Even. She never asked where her father was. But she always watched the door. The girl looked up at her mother. Then back at me. I knelt slowly, not to get closer, but to make myself smaller. She blinked. Then, after a moment, walked past me to the shelf. Picked up the cloth doll. Sat on the bed like it was her usual hour to do so. Rael placed her hand on my shoulder. She doesn't need you to stay, she said. But I think you do. I nodded, though my throat felt like it was made of glass. The girl looked at me again. Tilted her head. Then held up the doll. As if asking if I wanted to see it. I reached out. Not to take it. Just to let her know I would have, if she asked. She set it in my hand. The fabric was worn at the seams. But whole. Like everything Rael had touched since I left. I sat on the floor. Cross-legged. The doll in my lap. Rael leaned against the door frame. Silent. I didn't ask the girl her name. Somehow, I felt like I already knew it. Or maybe I didn't need to. This room wasn't built for me. But it had been waiting anyway. And now that I was inside, it didn't ask for apology. Only presence. I looked at Rael. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just stayed. And for the first time since I left, I understood what staying meant. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a choice. Made quietly. Repeated daily. Held gently, like a doll with worn seams and a red ribbon on the wall. What she built in my absence was not a monument. It was a life. And she made space in it for me without ever needing to say so. The porch creaked when I sat down. Same sound it used to make every night when I came out to think, or hide, or wait. The stars were out. Clear. Unbothered by the messes beneath them. I rested my hands on my knees. Exhaled like I hadn't done it in years. Maybe I hadn't. The door behind me stayed open for a long time. Then it eased shut on its own. It wasn't cold. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask anything of you. Then I heard the footsteps. Lighter than hers. Smaller. She climbed onto the step beside me. No words. Just her presence. She held something wrapped in cloth. Hands careful, like she was carrying fire. She placed it in my lap. Sat back down. Legs swinging gently. I unfolded the cloth. It was a strip of red fabric. Faded. Soft at the edges. I knew it before I even saw it fully. Rael's old armband. The one from the Lyrie front lines. The one she wore when she saved my life. She said, the girl said quietly, if you sit here long enough, maybe the house will forgive you too. I looked at her. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't sad. Just certain. The kind of certainty only children and old souls carry. I didn't answer. I tied the fabric around my wrist. It slid into place like it remembered me. She watched me do it. Then looked back at the sky. We sat there together. Saying nothing. Breathing the same rhythm. The night didn't change. But I did. Not because I'd said the right things. Or fixed the past. I hadn't. But because I stayed. When the girl stood to leave, she didn't ask me to follow. She just touched the porch rail lightly. Then disappeared back inside. The door stayed open a moment longer. Like it was asking. I rose. Stepped to the doorway. Paused. And knocked. Not loud. Just once. Like someone coming home, not someone demanding entry. The sound echoed small and soft against the wood. Then I stepped inside. I built nothing. But they let me stay. Some people are forgiven. Others are simply not pushed away. I didn't return to fix what I broke. I returned to see if anything would still open for me. The house did. She did. And a child, who never knew who I was, offered me something no war ever gave. A place to sit. I didn't build this life. But someone left the door open. And that was enough. Thank you for watching. This was I Built Nothing, but they let me stay. For more stories of love, memory, and return, stay close. UFO Love and Hate continues.